Recently, I mastered the Retro Achievement set for Super Mario Sunshine, which features some intense original challenges that push my skills to the limit. And because it became one of my favorite sets on the Retro Achievements website, I wanted more. From there, I mastered the art of the spin flop and then beat the game again without ever using the hover nozzle. Which means that today, we're diving into the world of Super Mario Sunshine hacks, starting with Sunshine Arcade 2. If you enjoyed the floodless platforming sections from Super Mario Sunshine, then this is the perfect hack for you. It contains all 48 levels from Arcade 1, and then adds an additional 48 new levels, leaving you with a total of 96 shines and 96 blue coins to collect. And then thanks to Retro Achievements integration, we'll not only have trackers for the shines and blue coins of each world, but we'll have a few additional challenges too, such as damageless runs and speedrun achievements. But don't worry too much, most of these speedrun timers are pretty generous. And most importantly, because you unlock the level select after clearing all 96 levels, that means that there are no missable achievements in this set. But I'm really glad that I mastered 2 previous Super Mario Sunshine sets because while the first 2 levels are straightforward enough, Level 3 makes it clear that spin jumps are going to be very important throughout this hack. Level 3 is also the start of a recurring theme that I really love about this hack, and that's the ability to teach you something without directly telling you. This block here was immediately able to teach me how to get a feel for just how far I can hover, and then this skill is put to the test in Level 4 because Retro Achievements adds the first speedrun challenge for grabbing the 8 red coins. Nothing too precise and I was far from optimal, but you definitely need a game plan. Here was my route. After that, Level 5 is relatively simple in design, it's just one big vertical ascent with a blue coin that can easily be dropped to. But then we have Level 6, which is a beautiful racetrack level, leaving me asking the very important question of, why the fuck doesn't my game look like that? You see, there are many times where a ROM hack or homebrew developer is instead going to just test on an emulator due to how much faster and more convenient the process is, as well as the ability to access additional debugging tools. Especially in the earlier days of emulation, this meant that many ROM hacks were designed to work around the inaccuracies and quirks of that emulator, meaning that they weren't console compatible. As modern emulators get more and more accurate, this becomes much less of a problem, but here there was a slight issue. There are various hidden beta objects that you normally wouldn't see when playing this game on hardware, but there was a bug in Dolphin many years ago that left them visible. So unknowingly, many assets of this level were interpreted as beta objects, meaning I'm just completely out of luck here and have to start Marco Poloing my way around the level. Thankfully, this is the only level in the game that has this issue, but the problem is that despite this bug being known for years now, Retro Achievements decided to add a speedrun achievement to this level. That being said, another Retro Achievements user has pointed out that there is actually a solution to this problem. On Game Banana, somebody released a patch that fixes this level. So depending on how the memory address values work, which is definitely outside of my scope of knowledge, it may be possible to just add the files MD5 to the known good hashes, and then you go from an achievement that's a bit of a blemish on an otherwise perfect set, to an achievement that's incredibly fun and incredibly fair. But despite my rambling about this achievement, I don't even consider this the hardest achievement in the set, just the least fair one in its current state. So the first 6 coins are all actually relatively easy to get, but then you have a pit by coin 7. The point of reference I use is that I'm able to spin jump up onto these aerial blocks right when a zoomed in camera has them in the upper left corner. And then when you jump off the blocks to make it back onto the track, just know that you have an S-bend right before the final red coin. So here's the raw footage of my very unoptimized run. Hopefully it helps someone stuck on this achievement and shows that the timing isn't too narrow. After that, level 7 brings us back down to a much more relaxing pace with a 100 coin shine featuring the rocket nozzle, and then level 8 introduces a concept we'll be seeing much more of, not getting flood until about halfway through the level. So then after obtaining flood, turning back around for the blue coin, and then enjoying this fun little sequence of bouncing and hovering off the piantas, before you know it, we've made it to World 2. 2-1 is relatively easy, I got it on my first try. I just used a few spin jumps for the stars and then a bit of patience on the sand blocks, and then the change in scenery and music made it a solid first impression. Blue coin in 2-2 is visible right from the start, and then we have our first damageless level achievement. Not hard at all, got it on my first try. The big tip is to just, when in doubt, spin jump. and then if you need to, you can spray these guys from far away at the final run. As far as retro achievements go, I'd say that's a decent amount of points given how easy the achievement actually is. Then moving on to 2-3, we have a decently hidden blue coin, and then another set of 8 red coins to collect, but there's no speedrun tied to this one. The overall simple level design combined with the hiding places with the coins made this a pretty memorable level for me. 2-4 features several wall kick segments, hides a blue coin in one of the watermelons, and then gives you a fair warning at the end that you better start getting used to objects with sloped surfaces rotating awkwardly. Then 2-5 once again masters the art of teaching you things without directly telling you. The first few structures give you a good indicator as to how wall kick angles work, and then this structure here teaches you about how to spin jump out of your wall kicks to minimize the height loss and make it to the top. But while the level itself wasn't difficult, I had to do a double take to find that blue coin cleverly tucked away in this pocket. 2-6 then introduces an original idea of having your coins serve as a timer. You'll gradually lose them, and if you run out, you'll lose a life. I would say that you need to find that balance of collecting versus speedrunning, but the level wasn't too hard and it was a first run clear. 2-7 was probably the first notable jump in difficulty, featuring moving platforms, a red coin speedrun challenge, and having everything so spaced out that I definitely had a sense of choice paralysis trying to figure out which way to go and how to best save the run. Thankfully, it turns out that the timer is incredibly generous because I was incredibly sloppy, I hesitated a whole lot, I made a bunch of mistakes, and I completely overthought the beginning by ground pounding all the way down through the watermelons instead of just using the spray nozzle on the ice block. And then despite all that, I was still able to get the speedrun achievement. And then 2-8 has a neat level flow to it. The first third is pretty easy because you have the hover nozzle. Part 2 then becomes much harder because you have to carry the banana back to Yoshi and therefore can't use Flood. And then part 3 just requires you to spray the wall. I failed a few times on phase 2 and therefore was so excited to be done at the end that I almost forgot to check for the blue coin at the very top. And then we're off to World 3. 3-1 introduces a piece of level design that this hack uses pretty frequently, and that's having a single asset that's used for platforming on multiple floors or layers. So this level is effectively a 2-floor platforming sequence, floor 1 being moving across the swinging cranes, and then once you get the hover nozzle you go back the way you came, but this time across the tops of the cranes. Overall, I think the concept was implemented quite well, and this is definitely one of my top 10 favorite levels in this hack. Then moving on to 3-2, we have our second damageless run achievement, and it's actually easier than the first one. The only part that really poses a threat is the very beginning patch of bloopers. Once you make it past there, you'll reach Flood shortly after, can go across the top for the blue coin, and then you can spray any remaining bloopers as you run to the shine. And then 3-3 was probably one of the more forgettable levels for me. You wall kick for a blue coin, you ride a block, and that's about it. But 3-4 completely makes up for it, because you're going to be using the turbo nozzle to make your way across the level. And then after that, 3-5 completely hits you with an absolutely wild level of swinging cranes and red coins floating through the air. If there was a timer or a speedrun achievement for this, it would be a pretty tough one, but thankfully there's no timer, so I just took my sweet time and eventually got everything first try. 3-6 is meh. Nothing too memorable here, just keep climbing to the top. At least 3-7 is another personal favorite. It's a Gooper Blooper battle, but he's faster and there's a no damage achievement. A lot of Retro Achievements users tend to save this achievement for near the end, but I decided not to wait. It's tough but fair, and it's a fun challenge to overcome. I also thought that given the limited resources to work with in this linear hack, that this was a pretty good example of how you can use the structure of achievements to make a distinction between simply completing a game and mastering it. And while I was initially caught off guard by how fast he was, each failed attempt just made me more and more determined to overcome this challenge. And I was so excited when I finally got it that I completely forgot about the blue coin, making this the only blue coin in the entire game that I actually missed on my first playthrough. So then where among all this chaos was the blue coin hiding, you may ask? Why, right at the very beginning in plain sight, of course. But the fact that I didn't notice the coin multiple times is a testament to just how fun the achievement was. But then we move on to 3-8, and while I do respect the overall concept of this level, I personally did not enjoy it. It's a trading sequence to get the rocket nozzle, but the pacing is a little bit too slow for me. First you grab 10 coins and then trade it alongside the hover nozzle to get the rocket nozzle. Then you go all the way back and trade the rocket nozzle and another 10 coins for the turbo nozzle. Then you take the turbo nozzle all the way back to trade it for the star, but then you're still not done because you have to go all the way back to the beginning to talk to the Pianta for the blue coin, before going all the way back to the shine. Perhaps a better way to sum up my thoughts on this are, it's a good idea but perhaps implemented into the wrong hack. Because if you were playing a full level with multiple shines and then you did a trading sequence for a single shine in that course, that would be a much better implementation of the idea in my opinion. But really these are just nitpicks at the end of the day, so moving on to World 4, 4-1 has what I consider to be the hardest achievement in the entire set. This Pianta lost 110 coins and quickly needs 100 for the ferry within the time limit. The normal time isn't terrible, but the achievement time doesn't leave too much room for error, and because each missed coin means you have to travel further to compensate, you really can't be missing any of these coins from a time perspective. And then of course by design, the turbo nozzle is a bit stiff with the steering, so you're going to have a bit of a learning curve and you just gotta get good. But the worst part about this achievement isn't the time, and isn't the fact that it took me over a half an hour to get, but rather that I forgot to record my successful attempt. No way am I doing this one again. But then in true gamer fashion, upon reaching 4-2, I checked to see what would happen if I jumped off the cliff.
Well, I don't know what I expected.
The blue coin was in a fun location, and then the rest of the level is pretty self-explanatory. 4-3 brings some very fast spinning platforms, which I failed on a few times, but after making it to the second half I had the hang of things. To the surprise of nobody at this point, spin jumps makes everything easier. Fun challenge, fair difficulty, and overall one of my favorite levels in the hack. 4-4 then has a fairly difficult speedrun challenge tied to it due to the wide open level design and the reliance on normally underutilized tech such as with the sandbombs, cataquacks, and ropes. It took me 5 attempts to even figure out what my route was going to be, and then another 5 to get the time down. It was a satisfying challenge to overcome, and here was the route that I used. Not only does 4-5 feature a racetrack level that's actually visible this time, but it also features this hack's take on the Watermelon Festival. Hilariously, the plot is that nobody else has even entered this year's contest, so you just gotta get this tiny ass watermelon all the way to the end and then you win by default. The Pianta says you have to do it within 2 minutes, but honestly I have no clue if that's true. Maybe at worst it's just the fruit's despawn timer, but none of my attempts were near 2 minutes anyways. Then afterwards you'll find a pineapple behind the sign lady, and you'll bring it to this Pianta here and she'll reward you with a blue coin. Yet another personal favorite level of mine. Moving on, 4-6 is our first Piantissimo race, but he looks a little bit different. I can't quite put my finger on it though. The recurring gag here is that every time he challenges Mario to a race, he'll take the easy lane while throwing Mario down a much more complex path. Each of these races also has a speedrun achievement tied to it too, but nothing too difficult at all. I made multiple mistakes on it and I still got it on my very first try. And then to get the blue coin, you go all the way back to the start taking the easy lane. 4-7 brings in the swing mechanics, and that's about it. Overall, I'd say it's a quick and kind of underwhelming level. And then 4-8 is kind of in the same boat, but instead of a few swings, it's just a few uses of the rocket nozzle, and then it's over. But then we're on to World 5, where things are freshened up a bit by the bouncing Yoshi go-rounds. And this is one of the few moments in the hack where it directly teaches you about something, in this case using the dive to increase your speed and distance. Then once you get the hang of the bouncing, the rest of this level is pretty straightforward. And then 5-2 starts off casually enough before creatively combining both the Gopher mini-boss and the sand blocks to test your jump timings. And in my case also my depth perception. No need to defeat the mini-boss though, so slow and steady wins the race as you safely make your way across to the end. Then 5-3 beautifully implements a 3D block maze, requiring you to scale both the inside and the outside of the structure to collect all 8 red coins. Not a hard level, but I definitely got a little bit lost trying to find the final coin. Brilliantly executed, and I definitely wish to see more levels like this in future hacks. 5-4 then adds some swinging ships into the mix of carousels, and although historically I tend to struggle on these as seen in my Super Mario Sunshine hoverless video, here it wasn't too bad because you have FLUDD and you're not going to be on these ships for more than like half a second. And 5-5 contains one of my favorite level gimmicks in this entire hack, which is not being allowed to touch any coins. But outside of botching on the blue coin, the rest of the level was pretty easy and had plenty of room to navigate, to the point where I actually wish that this level would have been a bit harder and then had a few airborne coins thrown into the mix to make it harder to utilize FLUDD, but I still thoroughly enjoyed the level nonetheless. Then 5-6 is a level that at first glance looks like it would be really hard, but it's actually kind of easy because the gimmick works both ways. Platforms that are fast to disappear means that they're fast to reappear too, so despite multiple obvious mistakes on my end, they were all relatively easy to recover from, leading to a first attempt clear. 5-7 then introduces my absolute favorite gimmick in this hack, the Pianta Cops. If they catch you, they'll throw you off the edge. Now, I can't tell if I just got lucky or if their range is actually relatively generous, because after getting caught on purpose the first time to see what would happen, I was able to get the blue coin in the level clear first try immediately afterwards. Spoiler alert, this isn't the only level that you're going to see the Pianta Cops in. And while 5-8 is a good level at the perfect difficulty level to end the world with, it's just really hard to compete with the Pianta Cops of the previous level. You navigate the first half of the level without flood, and then return to the midway point to turn a gate and collect the shine. So then moving on to World 6, the scenery change is a pretty good indicator that the difficulty is about to spike a bit, but you still have a few levels before you have to worry. 6-1 is a relatively straightforward level with an easy blue coin, and then 6-2 is in a similar boat, no pun intended. Once again, it's a relatively straightforward level with an easy blue coin. Though I was a bit lucky on the level clear because I narrowly avoided the final set of spikes. 6-3, despite me messing up on the blue coin, wasn't too hard, and it was fun seeing how much I was beginning to master the slope mechanics when crushing this level, because just a few hours ago before starting this hack, this probably would have been a hard level. So after breezing through, 6-4 is another Piantissimo level, which once again has the blue coin hidden partway down the other lane after you win the race. While the level itself may be a little bit difficult at first, as far as the speedrun achievement goes, the timer is reasonable and I had plenty of time to spare thanks to some improvised spin flop shenanigans. Six 5 then brings us another speedrun achievement, but this time with the red coins. I just completely guessed a route and then got it on my first try. Then the blue coin is right at the very end, and I messed it up. At least the achievement's still unlocked and I didn't have to worry about it the second run through. 6-6 is the second 100 coin shine stage, and the pacing is kind of noticeable in this one because most levels will take you 1 to 2 minutes, with plenty of them being under a minute long, but then this one took me about 7 minutes to complete. Granted, I'm no expert and this is near the end of the first hack, so it kind of makes sense to have a longer level. My intuition told me that the blue coin was going to be near these blocks, and I was correct. So several minutes later, we make our way to 6-7, which stood out to me in the fact that it probably has the most unforgiving blue coin in the entire hack. Near the very end of the level, you're going to have these red and blue platforms that rotate fairly quickly, and it forces you to act fast to reach the second set of them. The blue coin is going to be right in between both layers, so whether you get it or not, you're realistically going to fall into the pit and have to start all over again. And in my case, I ended up missing the coin several times. We then begin to wrap up the Sunshine Arcade 1 portion with 6-8, and in contrast to 6-5, this level is a much better example of providing a noticeably longer level while also keeping the pacing solid enough that it's a fun experience from start to finish. This is definitely worthy of being the final level for Sunshine Arcade 1 because it has a little bit of everything and incorporates everything that you've learned so far into one massive level. My only critique here in hindsight is that I don't think you actually need Yoshi for anything in this level, and he just kind of exists. Not a complaint though, just an observation, and I definitely took advantage of his busted spin jumps and ability to create platforms to make portions of the level easier. After about 3.5 minutes in the level, we make it to our final obstacle, more Pianta Cops, and then we're done with the first half of this 2-for-1 hack. Many people who've played this game before will say that World 7 was probably the most memorable overall world for them between the two hacks. Taking the elements from Hotel Delfino, we have Hotel Sands, and most of the levels here are effectively 2 buildings that you can enter and warp between, but how you navigate inside and around these buildings are going to change in each level. The variations in the puzzles and concepts that the developers explored kept the recurring theme fresh despite the overall simplicity of each level, and left me constantly excited to see what the next level was going to look like. 7-1 and 7-2 are both fairly similar. 7-1 features the boos that turn into platforms for navigation, while 7-2 features spinning platforms instead for you to get around the outside. Then 7-3 as you collect red coins, but creates a small maze within the first building that you have to navigate through to reach the warp point in the boo painting. Then you'll find Flood outside the second building, and you'll use them to reach both the blue coin and the final 2 red coins trapped in ice. 7-4 requires you to collect at least 25 coins from the platforming segment outside, and then spend them to unlock bananas for Yoshi in the next room, as well as get the blue coin. 7-5 strays away from the 2-room theme and instead grants a single platforming section, featuring some fun wall kick segments where you have to carefully time your inputs to slide underneath and kick your way back up. 7-6 only utilizes the second room for hiding the blue coin. Then you find a banana for Yoshi in the first room before bringing it up to the roof and carefully bringing him all the way across the outdoor platforming section to eat the sleeping boo that's blocking the shine. 7-7 only contains an external platforming segment and has a blue coin hidden in plain sight. Despite the rotating speed of the platforms, it wasn't too hard to navigate and bounce off the boos to make it to the end, making it a fun challenge at the perfect difficulty level. And then 7-8 actually managed to troll me pretty hard, because my hunch was that after getting the hover nozzle that I had to go all the way back to the beginning and then enter the second part of the hotel to find the blue coin. But after making my way up, I found a fake blue coin instead. The real one was actually under the hover nozzle box the entire time, meaning that I went all the way back for nothing. But more importantly, the fact that there's a fake blue coin up here means that the devs figured that at least one person would be enough of a sucker to go all the way back thinking that that's where the coin was. So, congratulations developers, you played me. So after finally getting back on track and then breezing through this level, we make our way to World 8, which introduces the bouncing mushrooms from Pianta Village. It's not really any different from the bouncing carousels in World 4, so this was an easy first attempt clear. 8-2 then brings back the coins as a timer gimmick, but despite the tension, it was an easy first attempt clear, including finding the blue coin. Then 8-3 is a pretty hit or miss level depending on how good or bad you are with the chuckster mechanics. Bring each Pianta the food they want and then they'll throw you to the next section. Or in the case of the one trapped here in the box wanting a pineapple, a blue coin. If you're okay with the chuckster mechanics, then you'll have fun here platforming with the fruit and getting flung, but if you're bad with the chuckster mechanics, you'll hate how often you spend several minutes progressing just to botch it and have to start all over again. It did take me 3 attempts to complete, but the mistakes were clearly my fault, so overall I enjoyed my experience with this level. Moving on to 8-4, this was a straightforward and fun level that only had one tricky segment to it, the final part with the 2 moving mushrooms. And then just like the good old days of Super Mario World, I was able to clear the level by ditching Yoshi for the height boost. But it appears as if Yoshi was willing to forgive me because he was ready to help again in 8-5. The blue coin is hidden in the boxes, and then we have another 8 red coin speedrun challenge. And surprisingly enough, this was actually an easy first attempt clear. The first 2 coins are just kind of awkwardly right next to each other, and then despite having no real strategy here, Yoshi's absolutely ridiculous spin, jump, and flutter made it easy enough to navigate, which allowed me to improv a route with plenty of time to spare. Then 8-6 brings us a whole lot of climbing and moving panels. But despite a few instances of bonking and a lot of instances of overthinking, I eventually carved a path through to the end. 8-7 then features some unique movement for this first panel, and I really wish that they would have explored this idea further. It's actually a little bit disappointing to be shown that you can theoretically go wild with the custom track movements for these gates, but then you only ever see a custom track once in this entire hack. But really I'm just nitpicking at this point. The level itself is fine, not too hard, though I did sacrifice Mario to get the blue coin. And then we wrap up World 8 with a really fun and memorable 8 red coin maze. It's not hard, but it does require you to get creative with your jump timings. But despite that, the level is still forgiving because the moving panels all respawn, so as long as you take your time, this should be a really easy first attempt clear. But enjoy the peaceful experience while it lasts because World 9 begins to ramp up the difficulty with fast spinning blocks. If you haven't fully mastered the art of the spin jump yet, then you're going to learn real fast because things are only going to get tougher from here. And if you thought that 9-1 was only tolerable because of FLUDD, 9-2 brings in the springs, meaning you're going to have to carry them across spinning blocks and you can't use FLUDD. But for me the hardest part wasn't actually the navigation, but rather finding the actual correct location to place this final spring to reach the shine. It definitely took me more time to finish than I'd like to admit, but at least was a first attempt clear. But I can't say the same thing about 9-3. This level incorporates the water pulley systems in a fun way, requiring you to scale the tops of them too. So you'll be using them to not just ascend through the level, but turn back around at the very end to get the blue coin too. Overall, great level design. 9-4 then incorporates multiple elements of Noki Bay to create an 8 red coin challenge with a bonus achievement tied to it. And this is definitely one of those levels where choice paralysis makes finding a route a bit of a challenge, but after I failed on this multiple times, I decided to take a quick break by bringing the spring to grab the blue coin first, and then that's when I developed the cheese strat. I brought the spring to the top to create a shortcut to this platform here, and then I cleared it that way. After securing that victory, 9-5 has an easy to spot blue coin and a surprising first attempt clear on my end. Not because I have any idea what I'm actually doing, but rather because I had one of my best spin flop moments yet. Then after that impressive maneuver, 9-6 was another first attempt clear. Blue coin is available right from the start, and then you just have a few giant blocks to scale. Not really much else to say about this level. 9-7 is a bit longer, but it was still a first attempt clear as well. The level itself shows you the shine in the spring at the very beginning, so you just have to make your way across, grab flood, grab the coin at the top, and then breeze your way back to the beginning to get the shine. 9-8 then wraps things up on a much calmer note by allowing you to swim around in the level, utilize the boats to traverse quickly, and take your time collecting the 8 red coins. But the fisherman's hint for the blue coin didn't exactly help me, because what I figured that he meant was that it was nearby him in the water, so I dove down and swam around for several minutes looking for it, but couldn't find anything. I figured I'd get back to it later and just wrap up the rest of the 8 red coins, and then I finally found it in a school of fish near a tanuki. Or in other words, nowhere near the fisherman. Old man's got some damn good eyesight though. So after wrapping up the rest of this level, we're off to World 10, which incorporates the underwater aesthetics and ambient music, and as an added touch they use the submarine from Rico Harbor as a platforming element. The blue coin is sneakily hidden at the very beginning, and an observation that I've made as I'm editing this is that you don't get the hover nozzle at all in this world. In fact, there's only a single level in this world that even incorporates flood in some way. But moving on to 10-2, this level has one of the hardest to reach blue coins, so I just sacrificed Mario until I got it, which actually took numerous attempts. But after the blue coin segment, the rest of this level deceptively isn't too bad, because at first glance it looks like that these fast spinning platforms are going to be a problem for getting the 8 red coins, but with the tried and true strategy of the spin jumps, it's actually a whole lot easier than it looks. Then 10-3 marks the one time that you're going to be using flood in this entire world, and it's for a really cool underwater racetrack level featuring the turbo nozzle, which naturally makes this a good level for a speedrun achievement too. But don't worry, this is nothing like 4-1 in terms of difficulty, and the timer is plenty generous. After getting the achievement, the blue coin is going to be in the center of the level, and you get to it by finding an underwater tunnel just past the first turn near the start. And despite the overall simplicity of this level, it was a very memorable one too. 10-4 is going to be part spinning platform segments and part wall kick segments. After grabbing the blue coin near the very end, I had another good moment to flex a spin flop before wrapping everything up. 10-5 then tucks away the blue coin in this neat hiding spot here, and that's about it. Because overall this level was really short, really easy, and it was a first attempt clear. But then 10-6 completely kicked my ass because everything you need to collect is moving around. Even the blue coin right at the very beginning took me an embarrassingly long time to collect. And then after finally getting the blue coin, I proceeded to die repeatedly on the sand blocks trying to get the red coins from the fish. So it was definitely pretty amusing to go from high skill spin flopping with ease one moment to then doing stupid stuff like this the next moment. But don't worry, on my 5th attempt I finally got it. And at least all that practice on the sand blocks made scaling the giant blooper shaped structure in 10-7 a whole lot easier, enabling a slow but steady pace to get both the blue coin and the shine on the first attempt. But then the final level of World 10, despite being small in size, definitely poses a big challenge, and it's one of those levels where many of you will take your time collecting most of the red coins, only to still fall off the level anyways. So it's kind of just one big game of pick your poison where you choose the areas that you're the weakest at to get those red coins first, and then hope you don't mess up on the rest of the level. Side note, making this spinning platform resemble a propeller is absolutely adorable. On my 4th attempt I finally got it, and just like that we're on to World 11, aka the Corona Mountain World, which is filled with fire, lava, spikes, and these giant spinning baked potatoes. For 11-1, after you get the hover nozzle and the blue coin, the rest of this level is pretty easy. But then 11-2 introduces a whole new level of jankiness with these. This is another one of those rare moments in the hack where it directly gives you advice by telling you to try to stay on the top of these as often as possible. But even then, that's still much easier said than done, because these things definitely have a learning curve to figure out. I died many times in the process of trying to get a grasp on things, but after this trial by fire, you get flood to help you out through the end, and that makes a huge difference. 11-3 isn't nearly as hard because you start with flood, so you just make your way to the rocket nozzle, go back for the blue coin, and then take an easy stroll to the shine. But then, we have 11-4. It's an 8 red coin level, and it's another noteworthy hard one. I'm very grateful that there's no speedrun achievement for this level, because while the first 6 coins are all relatively easy to spot and reach, the final 2 are down here. So I ended up failing at this exact spot a good 6 or 7 times before finally making it through. Despite the difficulty though, this was a very fun level to improve on and eventually overcome. Then 11-5 brings back our favorite cheating racer. As far as both the race and speedrun achievement go, only the first section is of any real challenge here. It's also one of the best moments to incorporate a spin flop in this entire hack. After winning the race, we go down Piantissimo's track to find the rocket nozzle and proceed to get back to the blue coin. And to say that I had some incredibly stupid luck making my way to the blue coin is a massive understatement. But then my luck ran out trying to go back to the shine, and then I realized that the speedrun achievement doesn't unlock until after you grab the shine, so I had to do the speedrun all over again. But at least the race itself is easy enough if you pull off that spin flop. Moving on to 11-6, the blue coin is hidden right under the platform before the clouds. And while I thought that these bigger spinning blocks were going to pose a big problem, I actually held out to the end and cleared it on my first attempt. And I actually had similar results for 11-7, except in this case I made it all the way to the end before realizing that I missed the blue coin, and then went all the way back to the beginning and searched all over before I finally found it tucked away in this block. I can't be mad though, because that's actually in a pretty good hiding spot. And surely I'm not going to make such a mistake anytime again soon, right? In 11-8, we have another time date red coin challenge with a bonus speedrun achievement tied to it. In fact, this is going to be our very last red coin speedrun in the entire hack. And the achievement timer is once again very generous though, because I made multiple egregious mistakes throughout my run, and I still got it without too much trouble. The downside here is that this is a very, very long level, leaving a whole lot of room for error, especially with the spinning block segments. In other words, there's a good reason why the base game timer is 4 minutes long. And with that challenge completed, we can once again go, hey wait a minute, where's the blue coin? Then when I finally found it, I once again couldn't be mad because it was in such a good hiding spot while giving you just the perfect hint to be able to find it. But with all that said and done, we're now in the final world of this hack, which returns to Sunshine's roots by utilizing a traditional obstacle course background and music. 12-1 isn't anything too crazy by this hack's standards, and while I was initially worried that I'd have a third level in a row where I'd make it to the end and not find the blue coin, thankfully I found it hiding right at the very end. 12-2 had a sacrifice Mario moment for the blue coin, followed by multiple failed attempts at scaling this section here. Slowly but surely, I eventually fumble my way up, make my way to Flood, and then free the shine from the ice block. 12-3 is then mostly just a game of patience with the new moving block types. After finding the blue coin and wall kicking my way back up to safety, the rest of the level was smooth sailing. I can't say the same thing for 12-4 though, because while the blue coin was easy to spot, the disappearing block segments in this level required some careful planning to navigate through. Throw some bad luck in here and there, and I was here for a while, until I incorporated a spin flop to leave the spinning block early, and then delayed my departure from the sand blocks to make it to the end. 12-5 was much easier though, because while it looks like it would be tough, the only new concept here is riding on top of the push blocks. After getting Flood and grabbing the coin trapped in the ice, the final section can be largely cheese thanks to Flood, but I can only imagine how much harder this portion would be if you didn't have him. 12-6 was yet another sacrifice Mario for the blue coin moment, but aside from that, this was a simple level that doesn't have any new tricks up its sleeve. But then you have 12-7, which starts with an easy blue coin but really ramps things up with the gimmicks and the jank. This level gave me such a run for my money that I actually think that this would have been a better candidate for the final level than the actual final level was. It took me about a dozen attempts to beat, and most of the fails were from this section here with the disappearing blocks, but after catching a bit of a boost from the push block, I got a lucky break and made it to the end. So then we've made it to the final level of this hack, which was incredibly anticlimactic. After struggling so much on 12-7, 12-8 just felt so much easier in comparison, almost like these two levels should have been swapped or something. But at the end of the day, 12-8 is still a perfectly fine level, and after breezing through, we can access the level select hub. Any blue coins that you didn't collect will be visible over the pipe, and in my case I missed the one from the Gooper Blooper fight, so I make a quick trip to grab it, and just like that, we have another game mastered. And overall, despite the bittersweet final level, this was a fantastic series of hacks. The developers experimented with a lot of unique ideas here, many of which were exciting to experience and constantly left me in a state of wanting to see what the next level was going to be like. And even on the few sections that fell a bit flat, I still respected the efforts, the willingness to experiment, and the fact that all the levels still flowed cohesively. Ultimately, everything was expertly crafted, contained so many memorable moments, and improved my Sunshine skills drastically. And therefore I would gladly recommend this hack to any Super Mario Sunshine fan who's seeking a hard mode challenge but doesn't want to cross into Kaizo territory. Then for the Retro Achievements portion, the added challenges from the base Super Mario Sunshine game was that perfect stepping stone to improve my skills for Sunshine Arcade 2. And then the achievements for Arcade 2 make use with what limited material it has to push my skills just a little bit further and prepare me for my next Sunshine challenge, Super Mario Eclipse. My only grievance with the Arcade 2 achievements is of course the glitch level in 1-6, and who knows, that may be fixed by the time someone's watching this in the future, but for now I unfortunately have to call it a blemish on what would otherwise be a perfect achievement set for this game. But despite all that, I still recommend this achievement set if you're going to play this hack. And that's all I got for now. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to see Super Mario Eclipse because that video is coming next. So until next time, I hope you all have a wonderful day.